Hey friend, if you've got that deep hip pain from your SI joint, that's sciatica, your piriformis, it's bothering you all day long, well, I've put together a few simple movements that's gonna instantly help that pain go away. Let's get to it. For this one, it's gonna be really helpful to have a yoga block, but if you don't have a yoga block handy, one of the movements we're gonna be doing something might be kind of new to you, so being nearby a step or a stair, even a stack of books is gonna work handy too. So go ahead and grab that real quick, and then we're gonna get started with some really good stretches for the hips. I like to call these hip circles. You can hold onto the wall, off to your side, picking your knee up in front of you, and we're gonna move that knee in as big of a circle as possible. And when I do these, I really like to think like I'm trying to scrape the edges of my hip socket. So I'm using my own muscles to pull the femur through that ball and socket joint without moving or tipping my body around too much. We're just getting things warm. Let's switch directions here. So coming from behind and pulling forward. And always stay in a range of motion that you don't experience a lot of pain at all. So even if you can't go quite as big of circles as these, that's totally fine. Let's go ahead and switch sides, okay? So working on hip circles on the other side now. Standing up nice and straight, let's pick that left leg up. We're gonna move it in a big circular fashion. You'll definitely notice that one side is a little stiffer than the other side. Try to not compensate by leaning or tipping around. One more in this direction, switch directions. So coming from behind, getting as big of a circular motion as you can. Once again, thinking you're trying to scrape the edges of your hip socket. One more. Whew. So we started with a lot of effort with that one. So let's do kind of an easy one next. Coming to the back of your space, we're gonna kick your right heel out in front of you and sit back into your hips, feeling this hamstring stretch. Stand back up, we're gonna take a step forward. So left heel kicks out in front of you, sit back into your hips. I love doing this stretch even when I'm out walking. It's excellent to relieve some of the pressure through your hips, even through your low back while you're walking. Plus, what's great about this one is that you can do it anywhere. You don't have to get down on the floor, don't need a bench for it. You can literally pause while you're walking to do this stretch. So we're feeling that really great length down the backside of your hamstring. Okay, so here's where we're gonna use that yoga block. So set it on the floor, pretty close to the wall, because we're gonna stand up on top of that block. Don't have yourself up on like a huge stack of blocks, because I wanna make sure that you're safe here, but we're just gonna step up on it so that your other leg is swinging off the other side of the block. And what we're doing here is what's called hip hikes, okay? So keeping your pelvis level. We don't want your pelvis to dip forward or tuck under. We're keeping your pelvis level, and we're letting this other leg drop towards the floor, and then we're gonna pull it up towards the sky, hiking this hip up as much as possible. And this is where those hip muscles are working really hard, your glute medius. Your knee is gonna wanna bend, but try not to let your knee bend. We're just gonna drop that left foot towards the floor, pull it up to the sky. Drop it down, pull it up, and you're feeling this outside hip working pretty hard. Knee is not bending, keep your knee locked out. These are not baby squats. These are literally just hip hikes. We're gonna do 5 more of these. You should be feeling this outer hip working, and the better you are at keeping your pelvis perfectly level and not tipping forward or back, the better you're gonna feel this in that outer hip. Last one here. Good job. Okay, so we're gonna flip around and do the other side now. So foot is up on top of that block, stand next to a wall so you feel very stable here. Keeping your hips level, let's drop that inside foot towards the floor and then pull that pelvis up to the sky, hiking your pelvis side to side, making sure that your standing knee is not bending at all. These are not squats. This is just a hip hike. Drop it down, pull it up. And if you get any zinging pain, or if this feels like it's aggravating your sciatic nerve at all, just don't go quite so big of motion. but we definitely want to feel this in that outer hip, like it's working to stabilize your pelvis. It probably is starting to feel like it's burning a little bit. We got 4 more. 2, 3, and 4. Great job. Okay, so you can get rid of the block now, and we're gonna climb all the way down on the floor. Familiar exercise is coming next. You're just on your back in a basic bridge. Feet are planted about 12 inches away from your bum. Pressing through your heels, we're gonna squeeze your glutes and pick your hips up into a bridge. So if that last one was strengthening your outside hips, or basically your glute medius, this one is strengthening your glute maximus. So your main big glute muscle, largest muscle in your body. The stronger this muscle is, and all the muscles kind of connected through it, the less pressure is going to be on your actual hip joint and those connective tissues, your ligaments, and even that SI joint. Let's go about 4 more of these, squeezing your buns and lifting. Making sure that as you lift, you're lifting very evenly. You don't want to feel like you're lifting one hip higher than the other. This is one that you definitely want to have your hips level. Go ahead and set your hips down. We're going to roll onto your side now. Strengthening that outer glute again. So arm is out in front of you, kind of above your head, and you can relax your head down on the floor. Knees are stacked with your heels tucked up behind you. I want you to think about having your top knee slightly more forward than your bottom knee. And I want you to have your top arm, that elbow, down on the floor. So this is gonna feel like you won't be able to move very much, but that's the point. We're gonna lift that top knee without rolling your body open, okay? So keep that top elbow down, lift your knee, and then slowly release. Lift the knee, exhale. Slowly release. Lift, exhale. And release. Lift, exhale. Release. Let's go 2 more. You might feel both glutes working here. 1 more. We're not trying to lift very big. And release. Let's go ahead and flip it around to the other side. We've got some excellent stretches coming, but we want to get these hip muscles working first really good. The stronger these muscles are, the less pain you're going to experience in your hip joint. So on our side, top knee slightly more forward than the bottom knee. Top elbow down on the floor. Let's go ahead and pick that top knee up. Exhale. Set it down. Do it again. Lift the top knee. Set it down. That top elbow, because it's down on the floor, it's preventing you from rolling backwards. When you roll backwards, that's where you really kind of twist your pelvis. We end up working all the wrong muscles too. So keeping yourself anchored down, and it might feel like you can't lift very far, that is okay. Even 2 inches of a lift is good. Last one there. And release. Okay, so rise up, sitting on one hip, and we're gonna find yourself in this 90-90 position. Using that yoga block again is helpful. You can prop your right hip up on that block. If you feel particularly flexible though, you might not need that block. But what this is gonna do, it's gonna help you get into this squared up position, facing over that shin. And we're gonna tip that tailbone out behind you and lean forward if you need to. Just a touch. You might not need to lean forward. You probably feel that stretch without the lean. But if you wanna add a little bit of that forward lean, you can. If you feel very flexible, you can get rid of the block and let your hips just sit on the floor. Tip that tail out behind you. That's gonna dig into your hip and you'll feel that deep stretch. Leaning forward. Go ahead and rise up. Lean back on your hands and you can wiggle your hips, and we're gonna switch sides. So now your feet are facing the other way, kind of wrapped around you this way. Get your hip out behind you, tipping your tailbone. Sit up really tall, very good posture here. We're gonna lean your chest forward. Feeling that deep stretch. in those hip rotators. Couple deep breaths here. One more deep breath. Go ahead and rise up. I've got 2 more quick stretches to show you. This is where having a chair handy close by. These are some of my favorite stretches that you can do up on your feet, but they instantly relieve that tension through your hips. Go ahead and place your right foot up on a chair or even a stair, the seat of a couch, and we're gonna tuck your tailbone under and press your left hip bone forward. I've got my right foot on the chair. Feeling that stretch right in this left hip flexor. The more flexible the front of your hip, the less pressure you're gonna have through your SI joint, through your sciatic nerve area. Pressing that hip bone forward. Let's release off of that stretch and do the other side. Left foot goes onto the chair. We're gonna tuck your tailbone under, press your hip bone forward. You can add onto this by reaching that right arm up to the sky. Go ahead and release out of this stretch. One more here. We're gonna plant the heel of your right leg, heel of your right foot on the chair. Tip your hips out behind you and push your chest forward. This is one of the best ways to get a good hamstring stretch here. You can even rock your foot in, rock it out. Almost like you're windshield wipering your feet here. So rock it in, rock it out. Let's release out of that. Switch sides. Left heel is on the chair. Sit your hips back. We kind of dabbled with this position earlier with those walking stretches when I was mentioning it being a really good stretch if you go for a walk and you ever get that hip or even low back pain while you're walking. These are great. It's a great way to stretch your hamstrings, stretch through the hips without getting down on the floor. Okay, good job. Go ahead and release out of that. Nice work. I hope that felt so good for you. If you really loved this video, I've got another one just a lot like this that I linked above. And hey, go leave a comment below. I would love to hear what you thought about this one.